Yo, this is the Fight Block. UFC 130 is live, May 28th. The card's taking a major blow. The main event, Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard, has been postponed. Both fighters have injuries. I believe Frankie Edgar broke his rib. Gray Maynard, he's been battling a knee injury. So the fight's been postponed for at least a month. Quentin Rampage Jackson versus Matt Hamill is now our new main event. I'm going to quickly start by talking about a great matchup on the prelim fights. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson takes on Miguel Angel Torres. Great matchup. And then I'm going to give my main card predictions. Overall, this card is one of the toughest to call in a while, in my opinion. There's a lot of evenly matched up fights, and it really could go either way. So I'll do my best on giving the predictions. That being said, let's get started. In the headlining bout on the Spike TV prelims, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson takes on former WEC bantamweight champion Miguel Angel Torres. This is a great matchup. Possibly has title implications. The winner of this fight will be right there in the mix for a title shot in the bantamweight division. Demetrius Johnson, if you haven't seen him fight, he's one of the fastest fighters I've ever seen in terms of striking and mixing it up with his takedowns and wrestling. The dude is just super fast, and he's coming off an impressive victory over Kid Yamamoto in his last fight. Just really mixed it up with his striking and wrestling. Looked really impressive in that fight. Just pretty much dominated Yamamoto. Miguel Angel Torres, former champion. He's won his last two fights. His last fight, not the most exciting, but he just completely dominated Antonio Banuelos on the feet. Really utilized his technical striking and just worked his way to a decision. Miguel Angel Torres, overall, just a very well-rounded fighter. Great ground game, solid striking, but if he does have one weakness, I think it's his takedown defense. Mighty Mouse Johnson, he's quick. He's just got incredible double leg takedowns. He could shoot in on you. Super quick. I mean, I keep saying fast, but the dude's just, I mean, that's a huge advantage. One of the fastest fighters I've ever seen. So, that being said, I really think Johnson's going to surprise Torres. I think he's going to be a little too quick and really utilize his wrestling to take Torres down, avoid submissions, and work his way to a unanimous decision. So I'm taking Demetrius Johnson with an upset over former champion Miguel Angel Torres by unanimous decision. The first fight on the main card, Thiago Alves takes on Rick Horror Story. Pretty sweet nickname. But that fight's taking the place of the Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard slot on the main card. Starting the show off now. Rick Story, he's won his last 5 fights in a row in the UFC. He lost his UFC debut, but he's won every fight since. He's a wrestler. He's quick. He's got really fast hands. We saw him in the fight against Dustin Hazlett get Hazlett up against the cage and just use his aggression to just beat down Hazlett. And just his last fight, he won a unanimous decision over Johnny Hendricks. Hendricks had been undefeated prior to that fight. And overall, I mean, it wasn't the most exciting fight, but a win over Hendricks was pretty impressive. So, I mean, I've been really impressed by Rick Story lately, but Thiago Alves, he's got the experience, size advantage, and I really think his technical striking is going to catapult him to this win. Thiago Alves, he's going to be stronger, bigger, and I think will control this fight. I really don't think Rick Story is going to be able to really utilize his wrestling against Alves. I think Alves will be able to stuff most of Story's attempts if Story does try to take Alves down. And I see most of this fight taking place on the feet. And I think Alves will control this fight. So I'm taking Thiago Alves by unanimous decision. Second fight on the card, the All-American Brian Stann takes on Jorge Santiago. Santiago, he's making his UFC return. His first stint in the UFC wasn't all that successful. He lost to both Chris Lieben and Alan Belcher by KO, TKO, and then got the boot. Since then, he's rattled off some wins, and UFC's giving him another shot. He's Santiago is a Muay Thai fighter, but he's got great jiu-jitsu and ground game. Brian Stann, he's 2-0 since dropping down to the middleweight division. Brian Stann's coming off of a knockout win over Chris Lieben. A very impressive first-round knockout win for Stann, but since moving down to the middleweight division, Brian Stann just looks like he's a force to be reckoned with, in my opinion. So my pick in this fight, I'm taking Brian Stann by TKO. In the first round, I think Stan's going to come out and catch Santiago early. If this fight does go to the ground, Santiago definitely has a chance to catch Stan in a submission, but I just see most of this fight taking place on the feet. Stan utilizing his wrestling to keep the fight standing and knocking out Jorge Santiago in the first round. The next fight on the card, Stefan Skyscraper Struve takes on Travis Brown. I think this fight has potential to be fight of the night if it doesn't end early. Both these guys, I think, are going to come out swinging, and really we're going to see a brawl. Travis Brown, he's undefeated in his MMA career. He's 10-0-1. His last fight ended up in a draw against Czech Congo. That was the fight where Czech Congo kept grabbing Brown's shorts, and then the ref finally deducted a point from Czech Congo in the third round. But Brown looked really impressive against Congo in the first round, and then ended up sort of gassing in the later rounds. Overall, he's got heavy hands, and he's a solid grappler, so he's got good jiu-jitsu, good ground game. Stefan Struve, he's 6'11", probably the tallest fighter in the UFC. The guy always brings it. I've never seen him in a boring fight. He's got solid jiu-jitsu on the ground, and then his stand-up's a little weak. He sort of tends to leave himself open, and then a lot of times he finds himself with his back against the cage. Sometimes that's worked out for him. He knocked out Christian Warcraft at UFC 117, just throwing punches with his back up against his cage. Overall, I just think this fight's going to be a brawl. Travis Brown, I think he has the grappling and jiu-jitsu to match Stefan Struve's ground game. So I think most of the fight's going to take place on the feet. I think both guys, like I said, are going to come out swinging, and it's just going to be a matter of who's going to drop first. Picking this fight, I'm taking Travis Brown by first round TKO. In the co-main event of the evening, Frank Mir takes on Roy Big Country Nelson. This is a tough fight to call. Both fighters are very evenly matched. Neither one has all that impressive stand-up, but both have very, very solid ground games. Frank Mir, he's coming off a knockout victory over Mirko Cro Cop. Although the knockout was a highlight reel material, it didn't come till the third round, and up until that point, Frank Mir just looked horrible. There really wasn't any sort of exchange between Cro Cop and Mir. I mean, Frank Mir looked slow, and I mean, most of the fight took place on the feet, if not all, the entire fight, and Frank Mir just did not look impressive at all. And I mean, a lot of people have been saying they've been impressed by the improvements in Frank Mir's striking. He worked Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira on the feet. Nogueira in that fight apparently was coming off a staph injury and was pretty much just a standing punching bag. So, I mean, I really think anyone could have looked good against Nogueira in that fight. And then people were impressed by Mir's striking against Congo. He dropped Congo with one punch and then submitted him within a couple minutes in the first round. So, I mean, if you call that impressive, I mean, everyone can land punches on the chin. I personally have not been impressed by Frank Mir's stand-up. And I actually give Roy Nelson the stand-up advantage in this fight. I think Roy Nelson could take this fight, push Mir up against the cage, and really use his size and weight to sort of hold Mir up and just sort of dirty box him, much like Shane Carwin did to Frank Mir, and ended up knocking Frank Mir out in that position, up against the cage, utilizing dirty boxing. I give the wrestling advantage also to Roy Nelson. I think Nelson can take this fight to the ground, get good position, and avoid Mir's submissions on the ground. So my pick of this fight, I'm taking Roy Nelson by unanimous decision. In the main event of the evening, Quentin Rampage Jackson takes on Matt Hamill. This is a solid matchup, and I really think Matt Hamill has a good shot of winning if he comes into this fight with a smart game plan and takes Rampage down to the ground. Rampage is coming off a split decision win over Machida. Controversial fight. I personally, like I mentioned in my last video, felt Machida won that fight against Rampage, but the judges and a lot of people felt that Rampage's aggression won him that fight. But with that being said, Rampage, he's coming off a win. Matt Hamill, he's won his last 5 fights, although one of those wins was the DQ victory over John Jones, where Hamill just got destroyed, and then John Jones utilized that 12-6 illegal elbow, and then the fight was called off, and John Jones got DQ'd. Really, I mean, the fight could have been called before that elbow was even thrown. I mean, really, Matt Hamill got destroyed by Jones. Like I mentioned, if Hamill comes into this fight with a smart game plan, I really think he holds the wrestling advantage and would be able to take Rampage down and control this fight on the ground. With that being said, for whatever reason, from what I've seen, Hamill mostly utilizes his wrestling to keep fights standing. He finds himself in a lot of brawls, and which is surprising because he really doesn't have the greatest hands. He's pretty slow on the feet, but he has been mixing it up lately. We saw in the Munoz fight, knocked Munoz out with a head kick. So I mean, his stand-up has definitely been improving, but it's nowhere near Rampage's technique and power. And I mean, just Rampage overall outmatches Hamill by far. My pick in this fight, I'm taking Rampage by TKO in the second round. I think Hamill, like I said, has a chance to win this fight if he comes in smart, but more often than not, I see Hamill finding himself in brawls, and you don't want to be in a stand-up brawl with Rampage. So my pick in this fight is Quentin Rampage Jackson, TKO, second round. That was the fight block. Thanks for listening. UFC 130, May 28th. I just thought I'd get my predictions out because I'm going to be pretty busy coming up. I'm actually seeing Joe Rogan stand up this weekend, so I'm pumped for that. Should be hilarious. Joe Rogan is awesome. Check out his podcast on iTunes. Joe Rogan Experience. If you don't already listen, it's an awesome show he does at least twice a week. And but thanks for listening to the Fight Block. And like I said, it's a tough card to call. So really, if you're gonna place bets, my suggestion is don't, because really a lot of these fights are toss-ups and can really go either way. So thanks again for listening. Subscribe, check out the Twitter and blog. I'll post those links in the description box. Peace.